How is it going, everyone? It's K Lummet here, and today we are going to be talking about a game on the Game Boy Color. We are going to be talking about Rugrats Time Travelers. Now, I think this is actually the first Rugrats game I've talked about on the channel, so I will say that I am a fan of the Rugrats. I grew up watching the TV show. We actually weren't allowed to watch it in the house because it annoyed our parents, but we would still sneak episodes of it every now and then, and I used to watch it and I always really liked it, and I would actually play some of the video games too. My cousin had some of the PlayStation 1 games, and I always enjoyed playing those. And I've gone through and I've recently been picking up a lot of the Rugrats video games, and this is one that I didn't actually know existed, and when I saw it on the Game Boy Color, I figured I'd go ahead and pick it up and give it a shot and see what it was like. And to be honest with you, it's not a very good video game, but I still like it. It's kind of weird. I can't tell if I like it because it's just Rugrats and I like the cartoon, or if it does have some good qualities, because honestly it has a lot of negative qualities, and we're going to get into it and talk about it in this video. So, Rugrats Time Travelers is exactly what it sounds like. You are playing as a bunch of the different babies from the Rugrats, and you are time traveling to different eras, and you are basically finding certain collectibles and trying to exit the era of time that you're stuck in. It takes you to a ton of different areas in this game. It takes you to Egypt. You get to go around this like Egyptian setting. It takes you to the medieval times, and there's like fairies flying around, stuff like that, and like evil little gnomes that you have to jump over. It takes you to this like underwater level at one point. There's quite a few different levels, and I will say all the level designs themselves are actually pretty good. I like the way that the levels are designed. I like the looks of the levels. That's one thing I actually gotta say that this game does right, is the graphics of this game. I actually think they're really good for a Game Boy Color game. You can tell what everything is, and everything just looks really, really good. They did a good job of styling this game, and I like it. I like that part of this game a lot. The actual gameplay of it, it plays pretty smooth. There's not really any issues with the actual, performance of the game. There is issues when it comes to the actual objectives that you're trying to complete, though, and that's when we really get into it, because while the game plays smooth and while it looks good, it unfortunately doesn't have a great gameplay loop going on for it. So the whole point of this game is you basically have to find an object and then go back to the time machine like portal that is still up for you to walk through. And you are going and you're collecting a bunch of baby bottles, and you have to have a certain amount of these baby bottles before you can actually exit the level. But that's not the only thing that you have to have. In some levels, you also have to find an extra object. And those objects can be like a random toy, or it can also be one of the other babies. Maybe you're trying to rescue like another baby so you can do the next area with that character. And so you have to try to find the baby instead. And then once you find all the bottles and you find the object you need, it will let you go through the teleporter. And that sounds okay at first, but the biggest problem with this game is that picking up the baby bottles actually ends up being a real pain in the butt, because there's a lot of enemies around you, and if you get hit by them, then you drop your baby bottle. And if you drop all of the baby bottles, then it will actually give you a game over, and you do have a set amount of continues. The problem really comes into the fact that when you drop these baby bottles, it's really hard to get them back, because you do have to go and find where they're respawning at. But not only that, it's really easy to get hit by these enemies, because these enemies, like, they can hit you so easy because your hitbox is really big. Like, sometimes it feels like you can be pretty far away from an enemy, and it can feel like you jumped over the enemy just fine and you missed them. And like when you land, it will still count that you got hit, even though it didn't look like you even touched the enemy. I had that happen multiple times. It's just like, I didn't touch the enemy. Why are you saying I took damage? That was really annoying when that happened. And another thing that was also annoying when it happened is that a lot of times in these older games, the enemies have patterns. And you think that some of these enemies have patterns sometimes, but then randomly they can turn on a dime when you're like about to jump over them, and they can just walk right into you and do damage to you. And that was really annoying, because of these enemies, I feel like this game would be better if these enemies actually had set patterns instead of randomly, like, you're waiting for them to go to one side. Basically, they have this little path that they walk, and you're waiting for them to walk to one side of the path, to the other side of the path, and then they just keep repeating the motion over and over again, and you're waiting for them to do that, so you get ready to jump over where they're at, and then they're walking away from you, and all of a sudden they just turn around and walk right into you instead. And it's just like, why do they not have a set path? Why do they not have a set pattern? Like, this would make this platformer It would make it make more sense, it would be more playable, it would be better if these characters actually had set patterns. But they don't. So I don't know why they did that, but it's really annoying. The AI is actually almost too good, I guess, in a way, because it almost feels cheap. It feels like it's like cheating you in a way, because the AI shouldn't be able to just turn on a dime and break its pattern to hit you. That's not something it should be able to do, but it does, and it's really annoying when that happens. And honestly, I could probably overlook some of these issues if it didn't have a timer, but this game has a timer on it, so when you drop bottles, it really messes you up because you have to go and try to find more, and the timer is running down while you're looking for them. And some of these levels can actually be pretty, I guess, intricate in how they're designed. Like, there's a lot of layers to them. And to get to certain areas isn't always easy, especially on the platforming areas, because there's this one level, for example, that has like a giant beanstalk looking thing, and you can jump on the leaves. However, sometimes you just fall through the leaves if you don't land perfectly on them. So there's a lot of platforms in this game where it looks like you're landing on them, but you just fall right through them instead, and that is so annoying. I hate it when that happens with platformers, and it's a real big pain in the butt for a game that has a timer on it. You know, you think you're getting like almost to the top of this beanstalk or whatever. You know that there's baby balls up there. However, even though it looks like you're going to land on one of these leaves to get to the top, you just fall all the way back to the bottom instead. Oh, and by the way, when you fall all the way back to the bottom, there's fall damage. This platforming game has fall damage, so you fall back to the bottom. Once you thought you were going to land on that leaf, you slide right through it, you hit the bottom of the floor, and you lose a bottle again. So now you have to go find an extra bottle because of that. And it's such a pain in the butt. I hate that so much. It's a very, very poor design choice right there. And it's a shame, too, because this game does look good. It really captures the essence of what Rugrats was, just a silly cartoon with a bunch of babies going on like their little imaginary adventures or whatever. It captures the show, but then the gameplay, unfortunately, was not polished, and it's pretty obvious that it just was not polished enough. And the default on this game, by the way, is easy. And even on easy mode, it's still pretty difficult just because the hitboxes are so bad. And I think that's the biggest problem with this game, is that if they would just fix that hitbox a little bit, this game would be a whole lot better even. But as it stands, it's just so far off. And there's some enemies, too, that their pixels, they made them like too wide. So because they're so wide and you try to jump over them, it takes your entire jump, and most of the time you're still going to end up landing on, like, if it's like there's like this weird looking like saber-tooth looking cat thing that you can land on named Fluffy. And you can try to jump over it, but most of the time you're going to end up landing on its tail anyway, and it's still going to do damage to you because they just made the pixels so darn long on that stupid character. So it's just things like that. It really is the hitboxes that really hinder this game in a lot of ways. There's actually some mini-games in this game as well, and they kind of just pop up randomly in between levels. And I will say, the mini-games are actually better than the base game, which is kind of weird, but it's true. The mini-games are actually better. This is kind of one of the rare cases where a platforming game, or just any sort of video game in general, is one of those rare occasions where the mini-games are just better than the base game. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and then it does, and this is one of those cases. At the beginning of the video, I said that I like this game, and that is still true. I do like this game despite its flaws, and it has a large number of flaws. Sometimes you like a video game even though you know it's not a good video game, and this is kind of that case. This is not a game I can recommend to people. It's not a good video game, but I still kind of like it, and it's mainly just because of the fact that it's Rugrats. Graphically, it's not bad for a Game Boy Color game. The environments that you go to are actually really cool. I like the different settings and the time travel aspect of it. Like, that stuff's actually pretty cool. And the actual platforming, when it works, is fun. It's just, there is a lot of areas that, unfortunately, the platforming just is not polished enough. There is definitely more negatives about this game than there is positives. So because of that, I cannot in good conscience recommend this to any of you guys, unfortunately. It's a cool game. It's not very expensive usually, but it's also not a good game. It's a game that has some interesting ideas, and that's really all it comes down to. It's a game that has some interesting ideas based on a popular IP, but unfortunately, it's just not a good video game. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button down below. I'll talk to you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.